Hi everyone, Eva here. I'm the owner and founder of My Sleeping Baby and the Sleep Bible program. And today, for this week's sleep tip, I'm going to be talking all about pacifiers, namely why pacifiers are so fantastic, when you should introduce it to your little one for sleep purposes, and when you should get rid of it. And the reason why I want to talk about pacifiers in particular is because I'm currently feeling really inspired from this week's Sleep Bible guest expert, Dr. Lori Goldenberg, who's a pediatric dentist who came to speak to our Sleep Bible members all about maximizing our kids' oral health. And so she talked about a ton of things, but one of those topics was the pacifier. And I think that she gave us a ton of insight into the pacifier. And so I really want to give over that information because it was really fantastic. So before we delve into what Lori taught us all, let me first take a step back and talk about the pacifier generally from a sleep standpoint. So the reason why pacifiers are so awesome is because when we're dealing with a newborn baby, they really help the vast majority of newborns calm and soothe, because newborn babies have what's called a sucking reflex, which means that when they suck on something, it really helps calm their little nervous system. And so introducing a pacifier to a newborn right away, for the most part, is wonderful and can honestly be a sanity-saving device to have your baby able to take. When your baby gets a little bit older, it can still be a wonderful sleep tool because it's just inherently calming and soothing. And this doesn't change, by the way, when your child becomes a toddler. And so generally speaking, from a sleep standpoint, I don't recommend removing pacifiers from the sleep equation until your child is at least age 3. Because when your child is under that age, we're dealing with a real toddler here who is typically not really able to understand or really care to understand why this big change is happening. And it can often be a very bumpy road when you're taking away something that they rely so heavily on to fall asleep, versus when the child is a little bit older and they're, let's say, of a preschool age range, developmentally and emotionally, they can be incentivized with rewards charts. You can really explain to them. They're more inclined to actually understand what you're explaining to them to begin with. And so it usually tends to go more smoothly. That being said, we obviously don't want to be compromising your kid's teeth either. So always speak to your dentist and get some customized, personalized advice for your little ones, because I am obviously not a dentist and this is obviously just very general guidance. And so when Lori and I were talking about this particular topic, I reminded her that when my kids were each 3 and 3.5 respectively, that was when they got rid of their pacifiers. See, Lori has been our dentist since Amuna, my 8-year-old, was 2 years old. And so Amuna was 3 when she got rid of her pacifier. We took her to the dentist for her checkup. She gave Lori her pacifiers. She got a toy in exchange, and everything for the most part went pretty seamlessly. And the plan was to do the exact same thing for when Eliana turned 3. And so I remember I was gearing her up, I was explaining to her and getting her all excited that she's 3 years old, she's a big kid now, and that we're gonna be going to Dr. Lori and giving Dr. Lori our pacifiers as well. And that morning, when it was time to go to the dentist, I had this awful feeling in the pit of my stomach going, this is not good. She is not ready for this, because you see, Eliana as a 3-year-old was still very much a toddler in terms of emotionally where she was at. She was very babyish. She was still throwing lots of temper tantrums. She was very impulsive. And so I knew that she was just not ready for this change and that it would be a pretty disastrous situation if I were to take away her pacifier. And so I took her to her appointment. I explained my fears to Lori, and I said to Lori, I said, is it at all possible to hold on to this pacifier for another 6 months? And so she looked in her mouth and she said, yeah, it turns out her bite is really not that bad. Her teeth are forming just fine. I think you should be a-okay to hold on to it for another 6 months. And it happens to be that in that 6-month period, Eliana really developed and grew a lot. She really graduated that toddler phase and became a real preschooler and really did become a quote unquote big girl. So that when it was time to go back to the dentist 6 months later, she really was ready for that change, and getting rid of the pacifier at that time actually went fairly seamlessly. And so when I was reminding Lori of this, she made a really interesting and I think very important comment that I want to give over to everyone. She said to me, she says, so if that was the case, and I told you that at 3 years old, her mouth was more or less forming just fine, even though she had a pacifier, chances are you were only offering her pacifier for sleep, that you weren't offering it to her during the day for soothing purposes. And I said, yes, you're absolutely right. Because you see, I've always made a concerted effort to keep the pacifier in the crib as a sleep tool only. And so she was saying that most likely the reason why I was able to hold on to the pacifier for Eliana until age 3.5 without compromising her teeth was because she wasn't offered the pacifier throughout the day as well as at night. And so her pacifier usage was very limited. And so if there is any advice that I guess the two of us can give you all, it's so that in order to be able to maximize your little one's pacifier usage without compromising teeth, I strongly recommend limiting pacifier usage for sleep purposes only. Because if your child is using the pacifier more frequently than that, then chances are it will begin compromising teeth earlier on, and then you're gonna have to get rid of it sooner anyways. And even though there are tons of 2-year-olds that get rid of their pacifiers in that age range all the time, it's not an easy road for a lot of families to have to go through. It's typically a lot less bumpy if you can hold on to it until age 3 or 3.5 without, of course, compromising their teeth. So your best bet to be able to get as much longevity from this fantastic, amazing sleep tool as possible is to limit it for sleep purposes only. So thank you again, Lori, for coming and speaking to our Sleep Bible members. It was fantastic as always. I hope that this was helpful and that you all have a fantastic day, everyone. Take care.